Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it. Then let's evaluate together. The Palace of Fine Arts glowed like a dream under San Francisco's starry sky, its golden domes reflecting in the lagoon, a beacon of elegance amid the city's tech-driven pulse. Inside the gala buzzed with the who's who of the Bay Area. CEOs in Brioni suits, sipping Dom Perignon, influencers in Dior gowns, snapping selfies, and venture capitalists whispering deals over plates of caviar. At the center of it all stood Zara Coleman, Novatech's star marketing director, her crimson Laquan Smith gown hugging her curves, the slit revealing a glimpse of her smooth mahogany skin. Her curls, pinned high, framed a face that radiated power, but her heart pounded like a drum. Tonight wasn't just about sealing the biggest deal of her career with Apex Dynamics. It was about survival. Zara stepped to the podium, her heels clicking on the marble floor, the spotlight warm on her skin. "Novatech's vision is more than innovation," she said, her voice rich and commanding, her New Orleans roots softening the edges. "It's about building a future where technology lifts everyone, starting with our new partnership with Apex Dynamics." She clicked a remote and sleek visuals lit up the screen. AI-driven platforms, eco-friendly data centers, a deal worth billions. The crowd applauded, but Zara's eyes darted to the back of the room. Simone Pierce, her colleague and rival, stood there, her blonde hair sleek, her lips curled in a venomous smirk. Zara's gut twisted. She knew that look. Trouble was brewing. Before she could continue, the screen flickered, then froze. Gasps rippled through the crowd as an email appeared, its text glaring. Zara Coleman, evidence of fund embezzlement from Novatech. The room erupted in murmurs, phones flashing as guests recorded the scandal. Simone's smirk widened her eyes, glinting with triumph. Zara's pulse spiked, but she didn't flinch. She'd anticipated this. With a steady hand, she clicked her remote again, replacing the email with a new slide screenshots, bank records, and a recorded call. "This is the real story," Zara said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Simone Pierce hired hackers to frame me, to steal my work and this deal. But I don't play games with liars." The crowd fell silent, stunned. Zara played the recording. Simone's voice unmistakable. Zara's out of her depth. Hack her accounts, make it look like she's stealing. Simone's face drained of color, her hands trembling. "You're lying," she shouted, but her voice cracked. Zara stepped closer, her locket, a Cartier piece engraved with a saxophone gleaming at her throat. "You thought you could break me?" "Simone, big mistake." She nodded to security, who moved in, grabbing Simone as she screamed, her manicured nails clawing the air. The crowd buzzed, X-posts already lighting up with Novatech scandal. Malcolm Hayes, posing as Lucas, an assistant from Apex Dynamics, pushed through the chaos, his dark eyes locked on Zara. His tailored tux hugged his broad frame, his presence a quiet storm. He reached her side, his hand grazing her elbow, sending a jolt through her. "Zara, you okay?" he asked, his voice low, urgent. She nodded, though her nerves were frayed. "I'm fine," she lied, her gaze still on the retreating Simone. "But this isn't over." Malcolm pulled her into the palace's garden, the air cool, the lagoon's ripples catching the moonlight. Fairy lights twinkled above, casting shadows on his sharp jawline. "You were incredible up there," he said, stepping closer, his body heat enveloping her. "But there's something you need to know." Zara's breath caught his proximity, dizzying. "What now?" "Lucas?" she asked, her voice husky, her eyes searching his. He hesitated, then cupped her face, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. "I'm not Lucas," he said, his voice raw. "I'm Malcolm Hayes, CEO of Apex Dynamics. I went undercover to scout Novatech, but you changed everything." Before she could process, he kissed her fierce and hungry, his hands sliding to her waist, pulling her against him, her gown's fabric bunched under his grip. Her curves pressed to his chest, each touch igniting her skin. Her hands tangled in his hair, the kiss deepening a wildfire of need and truth. His lips trailed to her neck, a low growl escaping him as her breath hitched her nails grazing his back. "I'm all in for you, Zara," he whispered, his voice a velvet promise. A sharp buzz from Zara's phone broke the spell. She pulled back breathless, her lips tingling. A text from Kendra Miles, her best friend, and a reporter at the San Francisco Chronicle hackers are still hitting Novatech's servers. Simone's just a pawn. Zara's heart sank. Malcolm's hand tightened on hers. "Whatever's coming, we'll face it together," he said, his eyes fierce. She nodded, the locket warm against her skin, but as they returned to the gala, Zara knew the storm was just beginning. Months earlier, the Fairmont San Francisco was a cocoon of luxury, its penthouse suites dripping with old-world charm. Zara Coleman, fresh off a killer pitch at Novatech's annual gala, swayed through the hotel's plush corridors, her head spinning from one too many Sazeracs. She wasn't supposed to drink tonight, not with the Apex Dynamics deal looming, but Simone Pierce had kept the cocktails coming, her smile too sweet to trust. Now, Zara's stilettos clicked unevenly, her vision blurry as she fumbled with her keycard. Room 1408, hers right. She swiped, the lock clicked, and she stumbled inside. The suite was dimly lit, a single lamp casting golden shadows over a king-sized bed draped in silk. A man stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, the city skyline framing his silhouette. Malcolm Hayes, posing as Lucas, turned his dark eyes narrowing in surprise. His charcoal suit hugged his frame, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "Well, this is new," he said, his voice low, teasing. "You're lost, darling." Zara froze, her cheeks flushing as the room spun. "Oh, crap," she stammered, her words slurring. "Wrong room. Look, I'm so sorry. Here, take this and forget I was here." She dug into her clutch, pulling out a crumpled $100 bill and thrusting it toward him, her fingers brushing his. Malcolm raised an eyebrow, amused. "Money for what?" He stepped closer, his cologne cedar and spice wrapping around her. "You think I'm hotel staff? You can bribe." She blinked, confused, her hand still outstretched. "Aren't you? I mean, no offense, I just—" Her heel caught the rug and she stumbled. Malcolm caught her, his hands steady on her waist, their bodies inches apart. Her breath hitched, his touch electric, his eyes locking on hers. The air crackled, her pulse racing as his fingers lingered warm against her skin. "Your trouble," she muttered, her voice barely a whisper. "And you're not running," he replied, his lips curving, his thumb grazing her hip. For a moment time stopped their breaths, mingling, her lips parting as his face dipped closer. But Zara pulled back, muttering apologies, and fled, her heart pounding like a jazz drum. Malcolm watched her go, a smile tugging at his lips. Whoever she was, he'd find her again. Days later, Novatech's headquarters in Silicon Valley buzzed with ambition. The office was a tech utopia, glass walls, a blue bottle coffee bar, and a Jacob Lawrence painting Zara had fought to display a nod to her New Orleans roots. She sat at her desk nursing a headache from that Fairmont fiasco, her mind on the Apex deal. She'd been digging into Novatech's finances, noticing odd transfers to an offshore account. Something was off, and Simone Pierce's smug glances weren't helping. The conference room filled for the Apex pitch, Zara's team ready to shine. She smoothed her blazer, her locket gleaming, and launched into her presentation. AI platform's global reach, a game changer. The glass doors swung open and her heart skipped. There he was, Lucas. The guy from the hotel striding in with a confidence that screamed power, not assistant. His dark hair was neat, his suit crisp, his eyes locking on hers for a fleeting moment. Zara's stomach churned. Why was he leading the meeting? She leaned toward Jalen Brooks, a sharp-eyed engineer. "Is that guy really Apex's assistant?" she whispered. Jalen shrugged his locks, swaying. "Looks like he's running the show." Zara's mind raced. An assistant with that swagger. Something was up. Malcolm, as Lucas took a seat, his gaze lingering on Zara as she nailed her pitch. Her strategy was flawless, her passion infectious. He nodded, impressed, but Simone clapped slowly, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Nice job, Zara, but let's be real. Some of us lean on charm more than skill, right?" The room tensed. Zara's eyes narrowed. "Got something to say?" "Simone." "Spit it out." Simone smirked. "Just wondering how you always land the big shots." Malcolm stepped in, his voice calm but firm. "Zara's work speaks for itself. Apex is ready to sign." The room buzzed, Simone's face twisting with fury. Zara blinked, caught off guard by his support. Why was this assistant vouching for her? Later that week, Zara's suspicions about Novatech deepened. She found encrypted files in the company server, hinting at a secret fund tied to Victor Hayes Apex's chairman. Simone's late-night meetings with a shady tech guy didn't help. Zara texted Kendra, her ride-or-die friend at the Chronicle. "Need you to dig into Victor Hayes. Something's fishy." Kendra's reply was instant. "On it, girl. Spill the tea later." Zara's investigation hit a snag when she and Malcolm got stuck in a Novatech elevator after hours of glitch. Jalen later swore wasn't his fault. The space was tight, the air warm, Malcolm's body inches from hers. His sleeve brushed her arm, his breath grazing her neck, sending a shiver down her spine. "You're in my space, Lucas," she said, her voice low, her eyes challenging. "Good," he replied, his voice a velvet growl. "I like it here." His hand hovered near her hip, not touching, but close enough to make her pulse race. The elevator dinged, the doors sliding open, but the heat lingered, a promise of something more. That night, Zara stood in her apartment, the San Francisco skyline twinkling beyond her window. She removed her locket, staring at the saxophone engraving a gift from her grandfather, a jazz legend. Her parents' voices echoed her mom's lullabies. Her dad's saxophone riffs cut short by a car crash. The police called an accident. But Zara wasn't so sure anymore. The files Simone Victor, it all pointed to a bigger game. And Malcolm, with his secrets in those damn eyes, was either her ally or her downfall. Her phone pinged with a coded email from Kendra. Victor Hayes linked to offshore fund. Simone's meeting his contact tonight. Zara's grip tightened on the locket. She'd built her career from grit, turned pain into power. Simone thought she could outplay her, but Zara was ready to sing a different tune. The gala was coming, and with it, the truth. Hey y'all, if Zara's fire and Malcolm's steamy secrets got you hooked, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Can Zara trust Malcolm with her heart, or is he playing a deeper game? Tell us what you think, and don't miss the next chapter of Zara Coleman's penthouse in San Francisco's Soma district. Was a sanctuary of sleek lines and warm hues, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city's twinkling skyline. But tonight, the view offered no comfort. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, each notification, a dagger X posts accusing her of seducing Apex Dynamics for the Novatech deal, anonymous threads hinting at shady dealings. Simone Pierce, her rival, had lit the match, and the internet was gasoline. Zara's fingers tightened around her Cartier locket, its saxophone engraving a tether to her New Orleans roots. Simone thought she could burn Zara down, but she'd underestimated her fire. The gala at Palace of Fine Arts had been a triumph. Zara had exposed Simone's hacking scheme, sent her running, but the victory was short-lived. Kendra Miles. Zara's best friend and a bulldog of a reporter had texted hours ago. Simone's just a pawn. Hackers are still hitting Novatech, and they're tied to Victor Hayes. Victor Malcolm's father was a titan of industry, his shadow looming over Apex Dynamics, and Malcolm. God, Malcolm, his kiss in the palace garden, his confession that he was no assistant but the CEO had set her heart ablaze. But trust was a tightrope, and Zara was wobbling. She paced her silk robe, slipping off one shoulder, her curls loose and wild, the memory of Malcolm's hands on her waist, his lips claiming hers, sent heat curling through her. But his lies posing as Lucas hiding his power stung. Could she love a man who'd played her? Her phone pinged again, a coded email from Kendra Simone's meeting a contact tonight, linked to Victor's offshore fund. Be careful, girl. Zara's jaw clenched. Simone wasn't done, and neither was she. The next morning, Zara slipped back into her role at Novatech, her tinted blazer sharp, her game face sharper. The Silicon Valley office hummed coders clacking keyboards, a blue bottle espresso machine hissing the Jacob Lawrence painting on the wall, a quiet rebellion against the tech world's whiteness. Zara's desk was a war zone of Post-its and coffee cups. Her laptop opened to encrypted files she'd pulled from Novatech's server. The offshore transfers were real, funneling millions to a fund tied to Victor Hayes. Simone's late-night emails to a hacker named Ghost confirmed she was in deep, but why Zara's thoughts were interrupted by a knock. Jalen Brooks, a brilliant engineer with locks and a sly grin, leaned in. Yo, Zara. You good words out about the gala? People are talking. She sighed, rubbing her temples. Let 'em talk. Jalen, I need you to trace those server hits. Simone's got help and I'm betting it's big. Jalen nodded, his eyes sharp. I'm on it, but watch your back. Simone's not playing solo. He handed her a USB drive, backdoor access to her email. Don't ask how I got it. Zara smirked. You're a lifesaver. Brooks. As Jalen left, Zara's phone buzzed with a new X post from an anonymous account. Novatech's star director cozying up to Apex's assistant for the deal. What's she hiding? Tech scandal attached was a grainy photo from the gala. Zara and Malcolm in the garden, his hand on her waist, their faces inches apart. Her stomach churned. Simone was hitting below the belt and the internet was eating it up. Desperate for clarity, Zara convinced Malcolm to join her in New Orleans, her family's home and her heart's anchor. The private jet, a sleek Gulfstream with leather seats and a stocked bar, landed at Louis Armstrong Airport under a peach-colored sunset. Malcolm held her hand as they stepped onto the tarmac, his touch warm but heavy with unspoken questions. You sure about this trip, Zara? He asked, his green eyes searching her face. You've been quiet since the gala. She forced a smile, her locket glinting in the light. I need to feel grounded, she said. This place, it's me. You in? He squeezed her hand, his voice low. Ride or die, darling. The drive to the Garden District was a journey through time. The streets wound past Creole cottages and oak trees draped in Spanish moss, their branches swaying like jazz riffs. The Coleman family home was a vision: white columns, iron-wrought balconies, a courtyard bursting with magnolia blossoms. Zara led Malcolm inside her heels, clicking on hardwood floors, the air thick with the scent of beignets and history. This is where I grew up, she said, running her fingers over a quilt on the couch, its patches stitched with stories. My grandpa played saxophone at Preservation Hall. My mom sang gospel. This place is my soul. Malcolm's eyes softened, his hand brushing hers. You carry them with you, he said, his voice a quiet reverence. I see it in you every damn day. That night they wandered into the courtyard, the magnolias glowing under the moonlight. Zara's silk dress clung to her curves, her curls catching the breeze. She hummed a jazz standard, her voice rich and raw, and Malcolm stepped closer, his hands finding her waist. Sing for me, he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. She laughed. Then let the melody pour out, her voice wrapping around them like a spell. Malcolm pulled her into a slow dance, their bodies swaying, his fingers tracing the curve of her spine, each touch a spark. Her breath hitched as his lips hovered over hers, the air electric. Your trouble. Malcolm Hayes, she whispered, her voice husky, her hands sliding up his chest. And you're my favorite kind, he growled, his lips brushing her jaw, then her neck, a trail of fire igniting her skin. His hands roamed lower, gripping her hips, pulling her flush against him. She gasped, her nails digging into his shoulders, the heat between them a wildfire. Their lips met a kiss that was all hunger and need, her body arching into his, the magnolias their only witness. But her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. A text from Kendra Simone's hacker just hit Novatech again. Files gone. Zara pulled back, breathless, her lips tingling. Malcolm's grip tightened. We'll handle it, he said, but the doubt in his eyes mirrored her own. The next day, they visited a small gospel church in New Orleans' Treme neighborhood, its white steeple gleaming against the morning sky. Zara had insisted needing to honor her parents, their voices echoing in the hymns she'd sung as a girl. Inside the pews were packed with familiar faces, elders who'd known her as a child, their voices rising in wade in the water. Zara joined the choir, her voice soaring raw with pain and hope. Malcolm watched from the back, his jaw tight, his eyes wide. She wasn't just singing, she was bearing her heart. But outside, as they walked through the church's garden, Malcolm's voice turned sharp. Zara, you're pulling away, he said, his hands in his pockets. I told you who I am. Malcolm, not Lucas. What's holding you back? Her stomach dropped. She hadn't told him about the pregnancy confirmed yesterday at a San Francisco clinic, 6 weeks along from that hazy night at the Fairmont, a moment she barely recalled but felt in every touch since. The doctor's words had hit like a thunderbolt. You're pregnant, Miss Coleman. She'd fought tears torn between fear and a quiet longing. It's not that simple, she said, her voice trembling. You don't know everything, Malcolm. Then tell me, he urged, stepping closer, his hand grazing her arm. The garden's jasmine scented the air, their bodies inches apart, the tension electric. His fingers brushed her cheek, his breath warm, and for a moment she wanted to spill it all. But fear won, and she pulled back. I can't, she whispered, turning away, leaving him standing among the flowers. Back in San Francisco, Zara threw herself into the fight. Simone's latest X-post was a gut punch. Novatech's golden girl pregnant wonder. Who's the daddy? Tech scandal. The office buzzed with whispers, colleagues casting sideways glances. Zara's inbox flooded with reporters' questions, investors pulling back. She confronted Simone in the break room, the air thick with tension. You're pathetic, Simone, Zara said, her voice low. This ends now, Simone laughed, her eyes cold. You're slipping, Zara. Everyone sees it. But her smirk faltered when Zara held up the USB from Jalen, proof of her emails, to Ghost Keep. Pushing, Zara warned, and you'll be the one falling. Zara's victory was fleeting. At Novatech, she teamed up with Jalen to trace the hacker's IP, finding a link to Victor Hayes' private server. But the pregnancy weighed heavier. She met Kendra at a Mission District taqueria, the smell of al pastor filling the air. I'm scared, Ken, Zara confessed, her voice breaking, a baby now. With him. I barely know. Malcolm. Kendra squeezed her hand, her braids glinting under the neon lights. You're Zara Coleman, girl. You built Novatech's brand from nothing. You can handle a baby, and that fine-ass CEO. She grinned. Spill the tea. What's he like? Zara blushed, the memory of Malcolm's kiss flooding back. Trouble, she said, her voice soft. The kind I can't shake. That evening, Zara drove to the New Orleans riverfront, the Mississippi shimmering under the stars. She sat on a bench, her locket warm against her chest, its saxophone engraving a reminder of her grandfather's strength. Simone's lies, Victor's fund, the baby. It was a storm she couldn't outrun, but Malcolm's words echoed. We'll face it together. She wanted to believe him, to let him in, but trust was a leap, and Zara was afraid to fall. Her phone pinged with another email from Kendra. Victor's contact is meeting Simone tomorrow. Got a name. Elena Vaughn. Elena, Malcolm's ex. The woman his family wanted him to marry. Zara's heart sank. The game was bigger than she'd thought, and Malcolm was at its center. She clutched her locket, whispering to her parents, I'll fight, Mama, Daddy. For you. For me. The river flowed its song, a quiet promise, but Zara knew the worst was yet to come. The Novatech headquarters in Silicon Valley shimmered like a glass cathedral, its open-plan office alive with the hum of ambition. Coders hunched over laptops, a blue-bottle espresso machine hissing the Jacob Lawrence painting on the wall, a vibrant defiance in a sea of tech minimalism. Zara Coleman sat at her desk, her Laquan Smith blazer sharp, her Cartier locket gleaming with its saxophone engraving. But her mind was a storm. Simone Pierce's ex-posts had escalated, accusing her of trading favors for the Apex Dynamics deal, and now hinting at her pregnancy. Novatech's golden girl knocked up. Who's the mystery man? Had tech scandal. The whispers in the office were deafening, investors pulling back her career, teetering. Worse. Zara's secret was unraveling, 6 weeks pregnant. A truth confirmed by a San Francisco clinic tied to that hazy, heated night at the Fairmont with Malcolm Hayes, then posing as Lucas, now revealed as Apex's CEO. His kiss in the Palace of Fine Arts Garden, his hands claiming her, had ignited a fire she couldn't douse. But his deception stung, and the pregnancy terrified her. Could she be a mother, a leader, and still fight the conspiracy, tying Simone to Victor Hayes, Malcolm's father? Her phone buzzed with a text from Kendra Miles. Elena Vaughn's meeting. Simone tonight. Victor's ex-associate. Watch your back. Elena. Malcolm's ex was a new player in a game growing darker by the day. Zara's thoughts shattered when Malcolm knocked, his presence filling the doorway. His tailored shirt hugged his broad frame, his green eyes stormy with worry. We need to talk, he said, closing the door. The click loud in the quiet office. You've been dodging me since New Orleans. Zara's heart raced, her fingers, brushing the locket for strength. I'm busy, Malcolm, she said, her voice cool, though his nearness sent heat curling through her. Simone's lies are tanking. Novatech, I don't have time for games. No games, he said, stepping closer, his cologne cedar and spice wrapping around her. I heard you on the phone with Kendra. You're pregnant, Zara. Is it mine? Her breath caught the truth, a weight she couldn't carry alone anymore. She stood, her eyes locking on his, raw and unyielding. Yes, she said, her voice trembling. From that night at the Fairmont. I didn't plan this, Malcolm. I'm scared my career, my life, it's all falling apart. His jaw tightened, shock giving way to something softer. Hope. You think I'd run? He asked. his voice low, stepping so close their bodies nearly touched. "I'm not that guy, Zara. But you've got to let me in." She shook her head, tears pricking her eyes. "You lied to me, Lucas, the assistant. That was a game, Malcolm. How do I trust you now?" His hands cupped her face, his thumbs brushing her cheeks, the touch electric. "I hid who I was to scout Novatech without the spotlight," he said, his voice raw. "But I never hid how I feel. I'm Malcolm Hayes, CEO of Apex Dynamics, and I'm falling for you hard." Before she could protest, he kissed her fierce and desperate, his hands sliding to her waist, pulling her against him. Her blazer fell open, her curves pressed to his chest. Each touch, a spark. She melted into him, her hands tangling in his hair, the kiss deepening a wildfire of need. His lips trailed to her neck, a low growl escaping as her nails grazed his back, her breath hitching. "I'm here for you, Zara," he whispered, his voice a velvet vow. "Baby and all." She pushed him back, breathless, her lips tingling, her body aching for more. "I need time," she said, her voice shaky. "This is the baby, it's too much." Malcolm's eyes darkened, but he nodded. "I'll wait," he said, his hand lingering on hers. "But we're in this together, darling." As he left, Zara sank into her chair, the locket warm against her skin, her heart torn between love and fear. That afternoon, Zara's investigation took a dangerous turn. Jalen Brooks, her engineer ally, hacked into Simone's email, uncovering a thread with Elena Vaughn, Malcolm's ex, linking her to Victor Hayes' offshore fund. The fund wasn't just a side hustle. It was a front for laundering money through Novatech's deals. Zara's blood ran cold. Victor, a titan in a Brioni suit, held the keys to this conspiracy, and Simone was his pawn. She needed to confront him, but going up against Apex's chairman was a gamble that could cost her everything. Zara arranged a meeting at Apex Dynamics' headquarters, a sleek skyscraper overlooking San Francisco Bay. The office was a temple of power, glass walls, a mahogany desk, a bottle of Napa Valley, Cabernet, chilling on a silver tray. Victor sat like a king, his silver hair slicked back, his eyes cold. "Miss Coleman," he said, his voice smooth but sharp. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" Zara stood tall, her suit a tailored armor, her locket gleaming. "Let's cut the crap." "Victor," she said, her voice steel, "you've been funneling money through Novatech into an offshore fund. Simone's your errand girl and Elena's your fixer. I've got proof. Emails, transfers, your signatures." Victor's smile didn't waver, but his knuckles whitened. "Bold words," he said, leaning forward. "But you're out of your league, Ms. Coleman. You think you can take me down? A black girl from some jazz town?" Zara's eyes narrowed, her fury a quiet blade. "I'm the woman who built Novatech's brand from nothing," she said. "And I'm not just from a jazz town. I'm from New Orleans, where we don't bow to men like you. Step back from Novatech, or I send everything to the FBI." The air crackled Victor's gaze. "A storm. You're playing a dangerous game," he said, his voice low. "Malcolm won't thank you for tearing his family apart." "Malcolm deserves the truth," Zara shot back, turning to leave. "And so do I." She walked out, her heels echoing the bay's shimmer, a silent witness to her victory. But Victor's words lingered, a warning of deeper shadows. Back in New Orleans, Zara sought refuge in the French Quarter, where jazz spilled from open doors, and the air smelled of Sazerac and sin. She'd invited Malcolm to a club her grandfather once played, Preservation Hall, needing to ground herself in music and memory. The club was a time capsule. Wooden benches, dim lights, a saxophone's wail cutting through the crowd. Zara wore a silk dress, its emerald hue catching the light. Her curls free her locket, a quiet anchor. Malcolm sat beside her, his linen shirt open at the collar, his eyes never leaving her. When the band struck up Summertime, Zara couldn't resist. She joined the singer, her voice rich and raw, pouring out years of pain and hope. Malcolm watched, his jaw tight, his heart laid bare. She was a force, his force, and he'd fight for her. As she returned to him, he pulled her close, their bodies swaying to the music, his hands on her hips, her curves pressed against him. "You're killing me, Zara," he murmured, his lips brushing her ear, his breath hot. His fingers traced her spine, slow and deliberate, each touch igniting her skin. She tilted her head, her lips grazing his jaw, a quiet moan escaping her. "Keep that up, Hayes," she whispered, "and we're in trouble." "Good trouble," he growled, his hand sliding lower, gripping her thigh, the heat between them a wildfire. Their lips met a kiss. That was all hunger, her nails digging into his shoulders, the jazz, a pulse matching their own. But a text from Kendra broke the spell. Simone's hacker leaked fake emails. "Boards, suspending you." Zara pulled back, her heart racing, her lips tingling. Malcolm's grip tightened. "We'll fix this," he said, his voice fierce. "Together." The fallout was brutal. Novatech's board, spooked by the leaked emails accusing Zara of embezzlement, called an emergency meeting. The conference room was a pressure cooker, executives in tailored suits. Simone smirking from the sidelines, the fake emails projected on a screen. Zara stood, her voice steady, despite the betrayal. "These are lies," she said, holding up Jalen's USB. "Simone's behind this, and I'll prove it. But the board wasn't convinced. You're suspended." "Coleman," the chairwoman said, her tone cold. "Pending investigation." Simone's smile was a knife twisting deeper. Zara left her head high, but her heart heavy, the locket her only comfort. That night she and Malcolm met at her penthouse, the city lights, a glittering taunt. He pulled her into his arms, his hands framing her face, his lips brushing her forehead. "We're not done," he said, his voice a vow. "I'll fight for you, for us, for our kid." His hand slid to her waist, pulling her close. Their bodies pressed together, the air electric. She kissed him slow and searing, her hands roaming his chest, his growl vibrating against her lips. "You're mine, Zara," he whispered, his fingers slipping under her robe, tracing her curves. She arched into him, her breath a melody, but pulled back, her eyes searching his. "I want to believe you," she said, her voice soft. "But this fight, it's bigger than us." "Then we'll be bigger," he replied, his hand tightening on hers. They stood the skyline, their witness ready to face the storm. The San Francisco skyline glittered beyond Zara Coleman's penthouse window, a dazzling lie that couldn't mask the chaos threatening to swallow her. The Novatech board's suspension hung over her like a guillotine. Simone Pierce's fake emails accusing her of embezzlement fueling a firestorm on X. Posts tagged. Tech scandals spread like wildfire, branding Zara, a fraud, a seductress, and now a pregnant opportunist. Her fingers clutched her Cartier locket, its saxophone engraving a lifeline to her New Orleans roots, but even that couldn't calm the storm in her chest. Simone wasn't just out to ruin her, she was working with Victor Hayes, Malcolm's father, and their endgame was bigger than Zara had feared. Kendra Miles's latest coded email had confirmed the worst. Simone's hacker ghost is tied to Victor's offshore fund. They're planning to leak Novatech's client data, pinning it on you. Elena. Vaughn's pulling strings too. Elena. Malcolm's ex was a ghost from his past, a woman his family wanted him to marry for a merger. Zara's pregnancy. 6 weeks along. A secret tying her to Malcolm from that heated night at the Fairmont made everything messier. His kiss in the French Quarter, his hands claiming her, had lit her soul on fire. But doubt lingered. Could she trust a man whose family was tearing her apart? Zara stood, her silk robe slipping off one shoulder, her curls wild. She needed to fight. But first, she needed Malcolm. His promise in her penthouse. "We'll be bigger," echoed his touch, still burning her skin. She texted him. "Meet me at Novatech. We're ending this." As she dressed, slipping into a tailored Laquan Smith suit, her locket gleamed, a reminder of her grandfather's jazz, her parents' strength. Simone and Victor thought they could break her, but Zara Coleman was built from grit and melody. At Novatech's Silicon Valley headquarters, the office buzzed with tension. The Blue Bottle coffee bar was deserted, coders whispering in corners, the Jacob Lawrence painting a quiet rebellion against the chaos. Zara met Jalen Brooks in a server room, its hum a low pulse. Jalen's locks swayed as he typed, his eyes sharp. "Ghost hit us hard," he said, pulling up logs. "They leaked client data. Big names, big money. Board's blaming you, Zara." She cursed under her breath, her nails digging into her palms. "Simone's framing me," she said, "and Victor's bankrolling it. I need you to trace Ghost's IP. Can you do it?" Jalen grinned, his fingers flying. "Already on it. Got a lead, some dive bar in Oakland, but you're walking into a war. Zara, Victor's no joke." "I've faced worse," she said, her voice steel, though her heart raced. Jalen handed her a flash drive. Ghost's last email to Simone mentions Elena Vaughn and a big player. "Watch your back." Zara nodded, slipping the drive into her pocket. As she left, Malcolm arrived, his presence a quiet storm. His linen shirt hugged his frame, his green eyes fierce with worry. "Kendra filled me in," he said, pulling her into a corner office, the beige shimmer framing them. "Simone's out for blood, and my dad's in this. Zara, what's the play?" She met his gaze, her voice steady despite the heat of his nearness. "We hit them where it hurts," she said. "The gala at Palace of Fine Arts is in 2 days. Every tech titan will be there. I'll expose Simone and Victor, but I need proof. Hard proof." Malcolm's hand grazed her arm, his touch electric. "I'm with you," he said, his voice low. "But my dad, he's ruthless. If he's dirty, it'll break. Apex. Break me." Zara's heart ached, but she stepped closer, her hand on his chest. "We'll rebuild," she said, her voice soft. "You, me, our kid. But we need the truth." His breath hitched, his hands sliding to her hips, pulling her flush against him. The office's glass walls felt like a cage, their bodies inches apart. The air crackling. His lips hovered over hers, his voice a growl. "You're my everything, Zara." He kissed her deep and hungry, his hands roaming her curves, her suit jacket falling open. She gasped, her nails grazing his neck, her body arching into his, each touch. A spark. His lips trailed to her collarbone, a low moan escaping her as his fingers slipped under her blouse, tracing her skin. "We're trouble together," he whispered, his breath hot against her ear. "Damn right," she murmured, her lips finding his again. The kiss a vow sealed in fire, but a knock shattered the moment. Jalen, his face grim. "Zara, ghost. Just sent a threat." "They know you're digging." Zara needed to clear her head, so she took Malcolm back to New Orleans, to the heart of her strength. The Garden District home was a sanctuary, its Creole architecture, iron balconies, magnolia blooms whispering her family's history. They walked through the courtyard at dusk, the sky a wash of lavender. Zara's linen dress swaying, her curls catching the moonlight. Malcolm's hand brushed hers, his touch a quiet promise. "This place is you," he said, his voice soft. "Soul fire, everything." She stopped by a magnolia tree, its petals falling like snow. "It's where I learned to fight," she said, her voice thick. "My grandpa played jazz, my mom sang gospel. They taught me to stand tall no matter what." She hummed a melody, her voice wrapping around them, and Malcolm pulled her close, their bodies swaying, his hands on her waist. His fingers traced her spine, slow and deliberate, her breath catching as his lips brushed her temple. "You're killing me," he murmured, his voice husky, his hands sliding lower, gripping her hips. She tilted her head, her lips grazing his jaw, a quiet moan escaping. "Keep that up, Hayes," she whispered, "and we won't make it inside." He growled, his lips claiming hers, the kiss deep and searing her body, pressed against the tree, its bark rough against her back. His hands roamed, slipping under her dress, tracing the curve of her thigh, each touch igniting her skin. She arched into him, her nails digging into his shoulders, the heat a wildfire, the magnolias their only witness. But a rustle in the bushes snapped them apart, a figure darting into the shadows. Zara's pulse spiked. "Someone's watching us," she whispered, her voice shaky. Malcolm shielded her, his body tense. "Stay here," he said. But she shook her head. "No way," she replied, her voice fierce. "We're in this together." They searched the courtyard, finding only footprints in the dirt leading to the street. Zara's blood ran cold. Simone's hackers were closing in, and Victor's reach was longer than she'd thought. The next day, Zara visited a gospel church in New Orleans, Treme, its wooden pews worn smooth by generations. She needed her parents' strength, their voices echoing in the hymns she'd sung as a girl. The choir's rendition of Amazing Grace broke her, her voice joining theirs, raw and powerful. Malcolm sat in the back, his eyes fixed on her, awe and love written across his face. She was his anchor, his fire, and he'd burn the world to keep her safe. But outside, Simone's lies struck again. An ex-post shared by an anonymous account surfaced with a photoshopped image. Zara and Jalen Brooks, their bodies close, implying an affair. Novatech's director cheating on Apex's assistant and had tech scandal. Malcolm's phone buzzed with the post, his jaw tightening as they stood under the church's oaks. "What the hell is this?" he asked, holding up the image. Zara's heart sank, tears stinging her eyes. "It's fake," she said, her voice breaking. "Simone's trying to tear us apart." "Malcolm, you know me. Do I—" He snapped, his voice sharp, pain flashing across his face. "You kept the pregnancy from me, Zara. What else are you hiding?" The words cut deep, her fury rising. "I've bared my soul to you," she said, stepping closer, her voice low and fierce. "I love you, Malcolm, but if you can't trust me, we're done." The air crackled, their bodies inches apart. The tension, a live wire. His face softened, regret washing over him. "I'm sorry," he said, pulling her into his arms, his lips brushing her forehead. "I'm in this, Zara, all the way." She nodded, her cheek against his chest, his heartbeat grounding her. But the photo lingered, a poison seeping into their bond. They drove to the Mississippi River, its waters shimmering under the moon, standing on the bank. Zara clutched her locket, her voice a whisper. "Simone's? Not just playing dirty," she said. "She's dangerous." Malcolm's jaw clenched, his hand squeezing hers. "Then we end this," he said. "The gala's our shot. What's the plan?" Zara met his gaze, her voice steady. "Jalen's tracing. Ghost's IP. Kendra's digging into Elena. We'll have proof by the gala. Simone's emails. Victor's accounts. We take them down together." He nodded his hand, sliding to her waist, pulling her close. "Ride or die," he said, his lips brushing hers, a kiss that was both promise and fire. Her hands roamed his chest, his growl vibrating against her lips. The river's song, a quiet witness, but danger was closing in. Kendra's next text was a warning. "Ghost knows you're onto them. They're planning something big at the gala." Zara's resolve hardened. She and Malcolm returned to San Francisco, the Palace of Fine Arts, gala looming like a battlefield. Simone and Victor were desperate, and desperate players, made mistakes, but the photoshopped photo had done damage. Colleagues whispered, investors wavered, and Malcolm's family was circling. Elena Vaughn's name kept surfacing, a ghost tying Victor to the conspiracy. Zara met Kendra at a Mission District dive bar, its neon lights buzzing, the smell of tacos heavy in the air. "Elena's no sidekick," Kendra said, her braids glinting. "She's got dirt on Victor. Old deals, shady mergers. If we get her, we get him." Zara nodded, her locket warm against her chest. "Then we find her," she said. "Before the gala." But danger struck closer. Driving through New Orleans back roads, Zara's Tesla was tailed by a black SUV, its headlights glaring. Her pulse spiked, her hands gripping the wheel. She floored the gas, the car roaring, but the SUV rammed her bumper, forcing her to swerve. Jalen, in a beat-up Jeep, appeared from a side road, slamming into the SUV, sending it crashing into a ditch. Zara pulled over, her breath. Ragged Jalen jumped out, his face grim. "You okay, Zara?" "Yeah," she said, her hands shaking. "Who were they?" "Ghost's muscle," Jalen said, checking the abandoned SUV. "Simone's not playing, and Victor's backing her. You need to be ready." Zara nodded, her mind racing. The gala was her last stand, and she'd bring the house down. But Malcolm's face haunted her, his doubt, his love, his fire. She loved him fiercely, but the storm was here, and trust was their only shield. The Novatech server room was a cold, humming fortress, its blue-lit racks casting shadows on Zara Coleman's face as she pored over Jalen Brooks' latest findings. Her Laquan Smith suit was sharp, her Cartier locket gleaming with its saxophone engraving, but her heart pounded like a jazz drum. Simone Pierce's hackers, led by the elusive Ghost, had leaked Novatech's client data, pinning the blame on Zara. X posts tagged #TechScandal were relentless, accusing her of fraud, betrayal, and worse, a pregnant gold digger seducing Apex Dynamics CEO Malcolm Hayes. The board's suspension had stripped her power, but Zara was done playing victim. The Palace of Fine Arts Gala was tomorrow, a glittering stage where she'd expose Simone, Victor, Hayes, and their conspiracy, or lose everything. Jalen's fingers flew across his keyboard, his locks swaying. "Got something," he said, pulling up a decrypted email. Ghost slipped up. "Sent this from Victor's private server. Mentions a USB with proof of the offshore fund bank records. Shell companies, the works. It's in Victor's office at Apex." Zara's breath caught her eyes, narrowing. "That's our shot," she said, her voice steel. "If we get that USB, we tie Victor to Simone and Ghost. The gala's our chance to go public." Jalen hesitated, his grin fading. "Zara, Victor's got security tighter than Fort Knox, and Elena Vaughn's sniffing around. She's not just his ex-associate. She's got her own agenda. You sure about this?" Zara clutched her locket, her grandfather's jazz echoing in her mind. "I'm sure," she said. "Simone framed me. Victor's bankrolling it, and Elena's their wild card. I'm taking them all down." Malcolm Hayes burst in his presence. A quiet storm, his tailored shirt clinging to his frame, his green eyes fierce. "Zara, Kendra just called," he said, his voice urgent. She's got a lead on Elena, some dive bar in Oakland. But Ghost knows you're digging. They're planning something big at the gala. Zara met his gaze, the heat of his nearness a spark in the cold room. Then we move faster, she said, stepping closer, her hand brushing his. We get the USB, expose them, and end this. You with me? Malcolm's hand slid to her waist, pulling her against him, the air crackling. Ride or die, darlin', he murmured, his lips hovering over hers, his breath warm. Her pulse raced her body, leaning into his, the server's hum fading. His fingers traced her jaw, his voice a growl. You're my fire, Zara. He kissed her deep and hungry, his hands roaming her curves, her suit jacket falling open. She gasped, her nails grazing his neck, her body arching, each touch a flame. His lips trailed to her collarbone, a low moan escaping her as his fingers slipped under her blouse, igniting her skin. We'll burn this down together, he whispered, his voice. Velvet. Jalen cleared his throat, breaking the spell. You all need a room or we doing this? He said, smirking. Zara pulled back, breathless, her lips tingling Malcolm's grin, unapologetic. Let's move, she said, her voice husky, her resolve steel. That night, Zara and Malcolm infiltrated Apex Dynamics headquarters, a sleek skyscraper overlooking San Francisco Bay. The office was a fortress. Glass walls, biometric locks, a Napa Valley Cabernet, chilling on Victor's mahogany desk. Zara's heart pounded as Jalen, remotely hacking the cameras, guided them via earpiece. Security's on the move, he warned. You've got 10 minutes. Malcolm picked the lock to Victor's safe, his fingers steady, while Zara stood watch, her Tesla keys clutched like a weapon. The safe clicked open, revealing a USB drive nestled among contracts. Zara grabbed it, her hands shaking, but an alarm blared, red lights flashing. Go! Malcolm shouted, pulling her toward the stairwell. They sprinted, footsteps echoing, security closing in. Malcolm shielded her, his body pressed against hers in a narrow hallway, their breaths ragged. His hand grazed her hip, his eyes locking on hers, the danger heightening their heat. We're getting out, he said, his voice fierce, his lips brushing her ear. They escaped to Zara's, Tesla peeling out as sirens wailed. Back at her penthouse, Zara plugged the USB into her laptop, her pulse racing. The files were a goldmine bank. Records, emails, a ledger tying Victor's offshore fund to Novatech's leaks. One name stood out. Elena Vaughn, listed as a consultant, funneling money to Ghost. This is it, Zara said, her voice trembling with triumph. Simone's done. Victor's exposed and Elena's next. Malcolm's hand found hers, his touch grounding her. You're incredible, he said, pulling her close, his lips hovering over hers. But my dad, he'll fight dirty. You ready for this? Zara nodded, her locket warm against her chest. I was born ready, she said, kissing him slow and searing her hands, roaming his chest, his growl vibrating against her lips. His fingers slipped under her shirt, tracing her curves, each touch a vow. You're mine, Malcolm. She whispered, her breath a melody. The city lights glittered their love, a beacon in the storm. The Palace of Fine Arts Gala was a vision of opulence, its grand hall draped in silk chandeliers casting a golden glow over tables set with bone china, and Dom Perignon, San Francisco's elite, filled the room. Tech moguls in Tom Ford suits, influencers in Dior gowns, their laughter masking whispered deals. Zara prepared in her penthouse, slipping into a crimson Laquan Smith gown, its slit revealing her smooth mahogany skin, her curls pinned high, her locket gleaming. Malcolm stood behind her, his tux sharp, his Audemars Piguet watch glinting, his eyes tracing her like a melody. You look like a queen, he said, his hands on her shoulders, his breath warm against her neck. And your trouble, she teased, turning her hands framing his face. "Keep looking at me like that. Haze, and we won't make it to the gala." His grin was wicked, his lips brushing her jaw, a slow, deliberate kiss that sent heat curling through her. His hands slid to her hips, pulling her flush against him, her gown bunching under his grip. Tempting, he growled, his lips trailing to her collarbone, her moan soft as his fingers grazed her thigh. "But we've got a show to steal." She laughed, pushing him back, her lips tingling. "Game on," she said, her voice husky, her resolve steel. At the gala, Zara took the stage, her presence silencing the crowd. "Novatech's future is bright," she began, her voice rich, her New Orleans drawl softening the edges. "But tonight it's about truth." She clicked her remote and the screen lit up Victor's ledger. Simone's emails, ghosts, payments, all tying them to the leaks. Simone Pierce framed me. Zara said, her voice steady despite the tears pricking her eyes. Victor Hayes bankrolled her laundering money through Novatech, and Elena Vaughn tied it all together. Gasps erupted, the crowd buzzing. Simone in a corner, paled, her hands trembling. Victor, seated at a VIP table, stood, his face a mask of fury. "This is slander," he shouted. But Zara played a recording. Simone's voice. "Leak the data, pin it on Zara. Victor's got our back." The room exploded in murmurs, phones flashing as X lit up. Jalen signaled security, who moved toward Simone, cuffing her as she screamed, "You'll pay. Zara." Victor tried to slip out, but Kendra blocked his path, her tablet open to the ledger. "Going somewhere?" "Mr. Hayes?" she asked, her voice dripping with sass. Security detained him, the crowd watching, stunned. Zara stepped down, her legs trembling, but her head high. Malcolm met her at the stage's edge, his arms wrapping around her, his lips brushing her temple. "You did it," he whispered, his voice thick with pride. "You're a damn force." She leaned into him, her locket gleaming. "We did it," she corrected, her voice fierce. His hand slid to her waist, pulling her close. Their bodies pressed together, the gala's chaos fading. His lips hovered over hers, a promise of fire, but Kendra's voice cut through FBI's. "On their way," she said. "Victor's done, but Elena's MIA." The fallout was seismic. Simone was arrested, her confession spilling in a stark interrogation room. She'd hacked Novatech for Victor. Desperate for a promotion, Victor faced federal charges, his offshore fund exposed, Apex Dynamics' stock plummeting. Novatech's board reinstated Zara, apologizing for their doubt. Her Brooklyn-born grit, now a legend. But Elena Vaughn's absence gnawed at her. The USB hinted at a bigger player, a shadow behind Victor's scheme. Zara confronted Victor in a holding room, its fluorescent lights harsh against his tailored suit. "Who's the real boss?" she asked, her voice low. "Elena's gone, but someone's pulling strings." Victor's smile was cold, his eyes glinting. "You're smart, Ms. Coleman," he said. "But you're not ready for the truth. Walk away for your kid's sake." Zara's hand tightened on her locket, her fury a quiet blade. "I don't walk away," she said, leaving him to his fate. But his words lingered, a warning of deeper shadows. Back in New Orleans, Zara and Malcolm found solace by the Mississippi River, its waters shimmering under the moon. They sat on a blanket, a bottle of Sazerac between them, their bare feet brushing the grass. Malcolm's hand traced her back, his touch grounding her. "You're a warrior," he said, his voice soft, his eyes tracing her face. "I'm so damn proud of you." Zara smiled, her fingers lacing with his. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said, her voice thick. "You saw me, Malcolm, all of me." He pulled her close, his lips brushing her forehead, then her cheek, then hovering over her mouth. "I've got something for you," he said, pulling a Cartier box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, a diamond set in a band engraved with tiny saxophones. Zara Coleman, will you marry me? Not for Apex, not for Novatech, for us. Tears spilled down her cheeks, her heart swelling. Yes, she whispered, her voice breaking. He slipped the ring onto her finger, his lips crashing into hers, a kiss that was both tender and fierce. Their bodies pressed close under the southern stars. His hands roamed, slipping under her dress, tracing her thighs, her moan soft against his lips. "You're my home," he growled, his breath hot, their love a wildfire. The river sang a lullaby for their future, but Zara's mind lingered on Victor's warning. "You're not ready for the truth." The Mississippi River flowed like a quiet hymn under New Orleans' starry sky, its waters shimmering with the promise of new beginnings. Zara Coleman stood in the courtyard of her family's Creole home in the Garden District, the magnolia trees blooming like lanterns in the moonlight. Her ivory silk dress hugged her curves, its off-shoulder design catching the breeze, her curls free and wild, her Cartier locket gleaming with its saxophone engraving. The diamond ring on her finger, etched with tiny saxophones, sparkled a vow from Malcolm Hayes, the man who'd fought beside her through fire. Tonight was their engagement party, a celebration of love and triumph. But Victor Hayes' warning echoed in her mind. "You're not ready for the truth." Somewhere a shadow lingered, and Zara's heart raced with both hope and fear. Malcolm stepped into the courtyard, his linen suit open at the collar, his green eyes warm as they found hers, his Audemars. Piguet watch glinted a reminder of his family's legacy, but his smile was all hers. "Hey, fiancé," he said, his voice low and teasing, his arm slipping around her waist. His touch sent a shiver through her, a spark that felt like home. "Hey, trouble," she replied, leaning into him, her curls brushing his cheek, ready to steal the show. He chuckled, his lips grazing her temple, his breath warm. "Only if you're by my side," he murmured, his hands sliding to her hips, pulling her close, her body pressed against his, the air crackling his fingers, tracing the curve of her spine. Each touch igniting her skin. She tilted her head, her lips grazing his jaw, a soft moan escaping. "Keep that up, Hayes," she whispered, her voice husky. "And we're skipping this party." His growl was low, his lips brushing her neck, a slow, deliberate kiss that sent heat curling through her. "Tempting," he said, his hands roaming lower, gripping her thighs, her dress bunching under his touch. Their lips met a kiss deep and hungry, her nails digging into his shoulders, the magnolias their only witness. But laughter from the courtyard snapped them apart, Kendra Miles's voice cutting through. "Y'all gonna save some of that for the wedding or what?" She teased, her braids glinting under the fairy lights, a glass of Sazerac in hand. Zara laughed, stepping back, but keeping Malcolm's hand in hers. "Jealous, Ken?" She shot back, her eyes sparkling. "Girl, I'm just trying to keep this PG." Kendra replied, winking. "Get your fine self to the stage." It's speech time. The courtyard was transformed into a southern dream. Tables draped in white linen mason jars, filled with wildflowers and fairy lights strung between the magnolias. A gospel choir from New Orleans' Treme Church stood ready, their voices warming up with soft hums of "Oh, Happy Day." Guests mingled: Kendra in a vibrant yellow dress, Jalen Brooks in a tailored suit, his locks neat, and a few San Francisco tech moguls. Their Tom Ford threads a nod to the world Zara had conquered. The air smelled of gumbo and magnolia, the laughter mingling with the strum of a guitar. Zara took the microphone, her gaze sweeping the crowd. Friends, family, and locals who'd known her as a girl. "Thank y'all for being here," she said, her voice clear and warm, her New Orleans drawl wrapping around them. "This ain't just about me and Malcolm. It's about roots, about fighting for what's right, about building a future from love and grit." She paused, her hand brushing the locket, tears pricking her eyes. My parents, Ella and Jonah Coleman, taught me to sing my truth, to stand tall no matter the storm. Simone Pierce and Victor Hayes tried to steal that, but they failed. Because of y'all, because of jazz, gospel, and a whole lot of Southern soul, we won. The crowd cheered, clapping and whistling, the choir humming in harmony. Malcolm stepped beside her, his arm around her waist, his eyes shining with pride. Zara's the fiercest woman I know, he said, taking the mic, his voice thick. She's my partner, my fire, and I'm damn lucky to be hers. So here's to her, to us, and to a future where we keep fighting for what matters. The applause was thunderous, glasses raised in a toast. Zara's heart swelled, but Victor's warning lingered a shadow she couldn't shake. She caught Jalen's eye across the courtyard, his subtle nod, a reminder he was tracing. Elena Vaughn's digital footprint. Zara forced a smile, refusing to let fear steal this moment. Later, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of peach and lavender, Zara and Malcolm slipped away to the Mississippi River. The water sparkled its gentle flow, a balm for their scars. They sat on a blanket, a bottle of Napa Valley Chardonnay between them, their bare feet brushing the grass. Malcolm's hand traced lazy circles on her back, his touch grounding her. We did it, Zara said, her voice soft, her eyes on the river. Simone's gone. Victor's down. Novatech's back. We're free. Malcolm's hand stilled his gaze, searching hers. But you're still carrying something? He said, his voice gentle but firm. Talk to me, Zara. She hesitated, then pulled a crumpled note from her pocket, slipped under her penthouse door. Days ago, Victor was just the beginning. Watch your back. This came after the gala, she said, handing it to him. Elena's out there and someone bigger's pulling strings. Malcolm's jaw tightened as he read the note, his hand crumpling the edge. We'll find them, he said, his voice fierce. Whoever it is, they don't get to touch you, not our kid. He pulled her into his arms, his lips brushing her forehead, then her cheeks, then crashing into hers, a kiss that was both comfort and fire. Her hand slid up his chest, her fingers curling into his shirt, his growl vibrating against her lips. His hands roamed, slipping under her dress, tracing her thighs, her moans soft as his lips trailed to her neck, tasting her skin. You're my home. Zara, he whispered, his breath hot their love. A wildfire under the southern stars, she melted into him, her body arching, her breath a melody. And you're mine, she murmured, her lips finding his, the kiss slow and searing, the river's song wrapping around them. But the note's warning lingered, a quiet call to keep fighting. In the weeks that followed, Zara and Malcolm rebuilt their world. Novatech soared, its new AI platform a global hit. Zara's name on Forbes 30 Under 30 as a trailblazer, They founded the Ella and Jonah Coleman Foundation, a charity supporting Black communities, its first grant rebuilding the Treme Church where Zara had found solace. Simone's trial ended with a 5-year sentence, her confession broadcast on every major network. Victor faced federal prison, his empire crumbling, his final words to Malcolm. A grudging respect. She's more than I gave her credit for. But Elena Vaughn haunted Zara. Jalen traced her to a burner phone in New York. Its owner, a ghost. The USB's files hinted at a network of elites, their names buried in encrypted codes. Zara hadn't cracked. She shared her fears with Malcolm one evening in the Creole home's kitchen, the smell of cornbread baking her hands, kneading dough, a habit from her grandmother. What if it's not over? She asked, her voice quiet, her fingers dusted with flour. Malcolm stood behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, his chin on her shoulder. Then we face it together, he said, his voice steady. You took down Victor, Simone, and their lies. Whoever's left, they're no match for you. His lips brushed her neck, a kiss that tasted of promise and cornbread, his hands sliding to her hips, pulling her close. She turned her hands, framing his face, her eyes searching his. You really believe that? His grin was wicked, his lips crashing into hers, deep and hungry, her body pressed against the counter. I'd bet my life on it. He growled, his fingers slipping under her shirt, tracing her curves, her moan soft against his lips. The kitchen faded, their love a wildfire, but she pulled back, her smile soft. We've got a party to plan, she said, her voice husky. The engagement party wasn't enough for Zara. She wanted to seal their love where it began, in the heart of her roots. On a crisp evening, she led Malcolm to a magnolia field behind the Creole home, the trees aglow with fairy lights, the Treme choir's voices rising in Stand By Me. Zara wore a simple white dress, her curls free, the locket shining at her throat. Malcolm, in a linen suit, looked at her like she was the only star in the sky. This is our start, Zara said, her voice thick, her hand in his. Not with lies, not with deals, but with us. Real raw forever. Malcolm's eyes glistened, his hand tightening around hers. You're my everything, Zara, he said, his voice raw. My home, my fire, my future. They exchanged vows under the magnolias. Not a wedding, but a promise. Their words weaving a bond stronger than any storm. The choir sang, the petals fell, and Zara felt her parents' presence, their love eternal. She'd made them proud, and with Malcolm by her side, she'd face any shadow. As they danced under the stars, his hands on her hips, her body pressed to his, their lips met a kiss, slow and searing, his growl vibrating against her skin. I'll love you through every storm, he whispered, his fingers tracing her spine, her breath a melody. The field glowed their love, a beacon, but the note's warning lingered, a quiet call to keep searching. For now, Zara chose Malcolm, the magnolias, and the life they'd build.